as we venture further into integrating AI within our learning environments, it's imperative to stop and pause and navigate through what that looks like with a moral compass. So today is not about scaring anybody about these unknowns, but with any new technology comes some new ethical considerations that we have to put our hat on and kind of dissect. So today we're going to talk about the various ethical dimensions, from biasy to privacy, transparency to accountability, to ensure that our educational tools not only teach, but also embody the values that we cherish. So this isn't to scare anyone away, but in order to use tools effectively and morally, we've got to kind of think about the fact that some of these things are going to come up. So let's begin the first of a couple different difficulties that pop up. The first has to do with bias and fairness in artificial intelligence. And these aren't just buzzwords, but they're the bedrock of trust and equity in our educational tools. So it's crucial to recognize that AI systems, particularly in education, are only as unbiased as the data they're fed. And this data often comes from historical patterns, societal norms, and existing educational materials, which we know can be riddled with stereotypes and biases. We've seen that in curriculums before. For instance, if an AI system is trained on historical academic performance, that data is inadvertently reflects socioeconomic class, racial, gender biases, and it might perpetuate those biases by favoring certain groups over others in resource allocation or assistance. And this form of stereotyping can manifest in lots of different ways. For example, an AI-driven recommendation system might consistently suggest advanced science courses to boys and humanities to girls, reinforcing these outdated gender norms. Similarly, AI tools could develop content that predominantly features certain racial or cultural groups in specific roles or contexts, and that can perpetuate stereotypes. So an example I have up on the screen is if I asked AI to generate images of scientists, I might get one that looks just like the one on the screen, an older white male in a lab coat, which certainly a scientist looks like, but not all scientists, but it's based on the data that it has. So addressing these issues requires this multifaceted approach. First, we need diverse and inclusive data sets that truly represent the wide spectrum of student experiences and identities. And this diversity in data helps in training AI systems that are sensitive to a broader range of perspectives and are also less likely to perpetuate those stereotypes. Secondly, there should be continuous monitoring and auditing of AI systems for these biased outcomes. Even with the best intentions and initial design philosophies, sometimes systems can evolve in a way that introduce or amplify biases. So with regular audits, preferably by independent parties, they can help identify and correct those issues. So tackling bias in AI in education is not just a technical challenge, but it's this moral imperative. So as we integrate AI into our educational settings, we want to make sure that it serves as a tool for equity and inclusion, not as a perpetrator of stereotypes and biases. So it starts with acknowledging this problem, and then hopefully it leads to diversifying our data, auditing systems, involving stakeholders, and starting to prioritize transparency. And then we can use that as a tool to uplift and support every student, regardless of backgrounds. So another issue that comes up is this idea of privacy. In this rapidly evolving landscape of educational technology, this is nothing new. The collection and analysis of student data through systems are becoming increasingly common, especially in AI. And this data ranges from, basic information like names or grades to more sensitive data such as learning preferences, behavioral patterns, and even emotional responses. So while this data can be instrumental for personalizing education and improving learning outcomes, it also raises some, significant privacy concerns. And the crux of the matter lies in how this data is handled. If misused or inadequately protected, it could lead to privacy breaches with far-reaching consequences for students. So, an example Exposure of personal information could result in stigma or discrimination, while data about learning difficulties or behavioral issues could negatively impact future opportunities for students. And we have some laws already in the United States. We know that we have FERPA, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, in the U.S. That provides a legal framework for data protection. And, it mandates consent for data collection and it grants individuals rights over their personal information. But these laws are just a foundation. It doesn't include some of these new technologies in the same capacity as when the laws were written. So, educational institutions and technology providers, they have to partner up to create this robust data protection strategy. That might involve implementing state-of-the-art security measures like encryption or security audits, but also ensuring data is anonymous or de-identified when possible. So we need policies, though, but because technology is new, the policies may not exist. Some of those could involve how long data is kept, when it is deleted, where it is stored, all of those things. So while student data offers immense potential to revolutionize educational opportunities through AI, this must not come at the cost of privacy. So by building upon existing laws with stronger protections, greater transparency, and some ethics, we can harness the power of AI to enhance education while also safeguarding the privacy and dignity of students. Now, we have this concept that hints at transparency. And transparency in AI involves more than just open communication, but it's about making the inner workings of AI systems accessible and understandable to its users. In this case, teachers and students. A lot of how an AI comes up with results and creates content seems like magic to me. But when AI is used in educational settings, whether it's for personalized learning, assessment, or administrative tasks, these algorithms that drive the process, they seem like this black box, really complex and really opaque. And this lack of understanding can lead to this mistrust or skepticism, and sometimes, depending on the person, even resistance to using such technology. So, for AI to genuinely be effective and beneficial in educational environments, it must not only be accurate and efficient, but also comprehensible. People need to know what is going on. Educators need to understand how AI reaches certain conclusions or recommendations. For example, if an AI system identifies a student at risk of falling behind, teachers should be able to understand the factors that led to that conclusion. So this level of understanding is crucial for educators to trust and effectively integrate AI tools into their teaching. In addition to that, transparency is really vital for empowering students. When students interact with AI, whether through adaptive learning platforms or automated assessments, they should have a clear understanding of how their data is being used and how decisions that affect their learning are made. This is nothing new, but it's especially true with AI technologies. This knowledge demystifies this technology and helps students feel more in control of their learning journey. So achieving this level of transparency requires us, concentrated effort from developers of the technology, but also educators and policymakers. So AI systems should be, designed with a user-friendly interface that provides clear explanations in how the processes and decisions are happening. So this could include, intuitive explanations of the algorithms or their decision-making criteria, the different data used to make those decisions, and the rationale behind specific recommendations or evaluations. So, in essence, transparency in AI isn't just a technical requirement, it's a foundational element for building trust and acceptance. And by ensuring that AI in education is transparent, we can allow educators and students not just to use AI, but to understand, question it, and ultimately, hopefully, trust it. And that paves the way for AI to be a powerful ally in the educational process. Now, we have some more ethical conundrums to talk about. This one has to do with accountability. When an AI system makes a recommendation, who in the world is responsible for the outcome? And this isn't a rhetorical question, it's a fundamental one. In education, where these outcomes can define a student's trajectory, establishing clear accountability for AI decisions has to be this non-negotiable. So in the context of education, where AI systems can influence decisions ranging from student assessment to curriculum design, the question of accountability is particularly complex. AI recommendations are not just bits of data, they can significantly impact a student's educational experience and their future opportunities. So, for instance, a AI system might recommend a specific learning path for a student based on their performance data. And if this path turns out to be, suboptimal, who's held accountable for that decision? Is it the developers who created the algorithm? Is it the educators who implemented it? Or is the educational institution that, endorsed it? Is it the school? And the developers of AI systems bear a significant portion of this responsibility, right? They're tasked with ensuring that their algorithms are fair, unbiased, accurate, and they have to, regularly test their systems in diverse educational settings to update them and reflect them on findings and data. But their responsibility also extends to making these systems transparent, like we talked about before. But educators are responsible for some of these things too. And how they integrate and apply these AI tools in their teaching practices, that's how they're responsible. So, teachers need to have this basic understanding of how AI works and its limitations, and that they remain critical of these recommendations, and they use some filters and professional judgment to make final decisions. So just like any technology, educators should be involved in providing feedback to developers, but also running it through their teacher filter. Schools and districts also play this pivotal role in the accountability matrix, right? They're responsible for choosing systems that are ethically designed and align with educational values and goals that they want to see in their institutions. But they also have to, create proper policies and oversight in place to monitor the impact of these systems. And there's this need even by lawmakers and regulatory bodies to oversee this implementation as well. So the accountability for AI's recommendations in education is a shared responsibility. It involves this collaboration among developers, teachers, school districts, and lawmakers, and each of those stakeholders has a unique role in ensuring that these systems are used in a way that benefits students and supports educational growth. And we can do that by clearly defining and distributing this responsibility across the system. And in addition to accountability, autonomy and control has a lot to do with teachers when they use any sort of technology. So this interplay between autonomy and AI, it's this delicate dance. And while AI can guide and personalize learning, we have to make sure it doesn't overshadow this critical role of teachers or undermine students' ability to make choices. So we know that autonomy in learning is sacred, but our tools that are AI should enhance, not erode, this principle. So for teachers, AI presents this double-edged sword. On one hand, AI can significantly ease the burden of administrative tasks. It can provide us insights into student performance. It can even suggest tailored teaching strategies or help us develop curriculum. But on the other hand, there's this legitimate concern that an over-reliance on AI could diminish, the teacher's role in decision-making or curriculum design or personalized student guidance. And this art of teaching is, human. We know that teaching involves empathy and adaptability and an understanding of nuance of student behavior and learning styles that AI might not fully grasp. Therefore, it's this essential key element that AI tools are used as supplements rather than replacements for the human element in teaching. So as teachers, we should be empowered to make the final call on educational matters, and we should use AI as a support tool to inform our decisions, not to dictate them. And students using AI and personalizing their education, they have a role that's equally complex. Personalized learning algorithms can adapt to each student's learning pace or style or preferences, and it can enhance learning experiences and outcomes. But we can't put a filter on that students need to have the freedom to explore and make mistakes and learn independently. So students should have the option to challenge or deviate from the path suggested by AI so that they can get to critical thinking and creativity and to learn autonomously and independently. And this is tough because, in essence, as we navigate this intersection of AI and education, we must, vigilantly safeguard this autonomy of teachers and students. And although AI offers valuable tools, they must be used in a way that supports and enhances the human aspects of education. So the aspects that foster creativity, critical thinking, and that love for lifelong learning. And if we can find that balance, we can really leverage AI to enrich educational experiences without compromising the autonomy that we know lies at the heart of true learning. Then we have the long-term consequences. This integration of AI in education is not just about enhancing current teaching methods or improving outcomes, but it's also about preparing students for their future. And that future world is going to be this deeply intertwined world with artificial intelligence. In this context, our responsibility extends beyond immediate educational goals to consider the long-term implications of AI on students' lives, particularly in terms of their career readiness and that love of lifelong learning. So as we embed AI into our educational processes, one critical question keeps coming up. Are we equipping students with the skills necessary to thrive in a future labor market that will be increasingly dominated by automation and AI? So the jobs of tomorrow will undoubtedly require this new blend of skills. And that includes not only technical proficiencies in working alongside AIs and computers and technologies, but also this cultivation of uniquely human, we call them soft skills, such as, conversational skills, critical thinking, creativity, emotional intelligence, and that key skill of adaptability. So our educational strategies must evolve to balance all of these skill sets, because although we teach content, we also need to teach some life skills in order to ensure that our students are prepared for the future, even if their future careers don't exist yet. So this kind of hints at this value of information in the knowledge economies, because as computers and as AI become more adept at processing, analyzing, and even generating information, the mere possession of information loses its previous value. Instead, the ability to critically assess, to interpret, to revise, to apply information becomes much more important. And this shift necessitates the reevaluation of our educational priorities from this concept of rote memorization of information to fostering higher order thinking skills. And this also hints at the concept of lifelong learning. It becomes increasingly relevant in a world with technology and AI, because as those technologies continue to evolve, the half-life of skills is so much shorter. I can jump on YouTube right now and I can learn a skill faster than I ever could in human history. Before, I would need an apprenticeship or people who have that skill, and now I have methods where I can find the skills. So this future workforce we're talking about will still need people who can continuously learn and adapt and acquire new skills quickly as the demands of their professions change. And we need to do that within the confines of this new technology. So as we integrate AI into education, we have to do so with an eye on the future. And we have to consider how these technologies will shape our labor market, the nature of the work that our students will do, and the skills required to be successful in the future. And our goals for using this technology should prepare students not just to adapt with the future with AI, but to thrive in it. So let's talk about equity and access. When we address the critical issue of the digital divide, right, especially in the context of AI and education, we have to recognize that the disparities in access to technology can significantly influence educational outcomes. We see that I see that in snow days. I look at the success of students who have parents at home or internet at home or printer or computer access to those resources at home, and the students who don't, and their success when they come back into the school, right? This integration of AI into the educational process presents tremendous opportunities for enhancing learning experiences, but it could also run the risk of widening existing gaps if we don't manage that equitably. And the digital divide is not just a matter of who has computers and who has internet access. It extends to the availability of advanced educational tools, different platforms, individualized training, which can provide those different learning experiences. So these tools have the potential to transform education, but only if they're accessible to all students, regardless of their socioeconomic background. So we need to ask critical questions about who currently has access to AI in education and who is currently being left behind. Because I can think of my conversations with some of our older students, who has had access and who has not. And in many cases, students in, underfunded parts of our school homes or income areas may not have the same access to technological tools as their counterparts in better funded areas. So this disparity can lead to this widening educational gap where privileged students benefit from the advantages of AI, and others who don't have those resources do not. Some of this is true for our teachers too, with teacher training. Equipping teachers with the skills to use AI is important as providing the tools themselves, right? So PD for teachers should include training and technology use so that there's equity in who understands how to integrate that into their teaching. When we confront these digital divide questions, it's all about ensuring that every student has an equal opportunity to benefit from technological advancements. It's about creating a future where technology acts as an equalizer, not a divider. And that goal, we understand requires collaboration, and involves lots of different stakeholders making equitable, inclusive decisions about education. And then we have emotional and social consequences. The integration of AI into educational settings goes beyond academic instruction, and it touches upon this emotional and social aspect of student development. If you've used this tool or even watched hundreds of hours of TikTok or YouTube, you understand that it has an emotional, social consequence on our understanding. It's not a person, it's not people, it's not the same as interacting in that capacity. So AI-driven educational tools, while beneficial in personalizing learning and providing analytical insights, can inadvertently lead to a reduction in human interaction in the classroom, and we need to be aware of that. The concern here is really multifaceted. First, if students are increasingly interacting with AI systems rather than teachers or peers, there could be a decrease in opportunities for developing critical social skills. Human interaction, especially in formative years, is really crucial in developing empathy and social understanding and communication skills. AI systems, as they are currently designed, largely lack the ability to comprehend and respond to the emotional states of students. And while some advanced systems have started to kind of incorporate emotional regulation, the nuances of human emotion and the appropriate, pedagogical responses are really complex. And this lack of emotional sensitivity can lead to an educational experience that neglects the emotional needs and development of some of our students. So as we embrace the benefits of AI, we have to do so with an awareness of its impact on, just like any other technology, the emotional and social development of students. And, if you champion this in a positive way, there are probably ways out there that are going to enrich that experience, not just intellectually, but also dealing with emotional and social needs. Then we have this question of who owns the things that AI come up with, right? This intersection of intellectual property rights, and how it becomes increasingly capable of generating this educational content, but who owns it? And this issue isn't just a legal matter, but it touches upon the core principles of creativity and ownership and sharing knowledge in the digital age. I think of the fact that this has come up in art, this has come up in music, this idea in engineering and design of who owns what when a lot of things are done collaboratively is a big question. And as AI technologies evolve, they're able now to create text and images, multimedia content, which can all be used for educational purposes. But this capability raises a big question. If an AI system produces a piece of educational content, who owns it? If the developer of the AI, the institution that actually owns the AI system, right? Or is it public domain? Or is it the teacher who, assembled the questions to shoot out the prompt? And these questions are really pertinent in education, where sharing and collaboration are so key. So this hints at that idea of defining authorship. Traditional concepts of authorship are based on human creativity and effort, but with AI-generated content, the quote-unquote author can sometimes be a program developed by other humans. And this blurs the lines of authorship and challenges existing IP laws, which are built around, human collaborators. There's this need to distinguish between AI as a tool used by humans and AI as an independent content creator. When is AI used as a tool? Does the human creator retain rights? But if it's used, autonomously and it creates content that way, who owns it? And that question becomes way more complex. Think about some of the photo generation or music generation software out there that uses AI. If I click a button and I choose the settings, but I don't create the content, who owns it? And when we navigate these really complicated issues, this collaborative approach of involving, teachers, policymakers, legal experts, developers, community, everything we've talked about before is really essential, because we need to develop this framework that recognizes and respects IP rights, but also promotes innovation and sharing and appropriate use. Then we have empowerment. This guiding principle should be its role as an ally, right? Do we enhance and amplify capabilities of both teachers and students? Or do we do something else? So the focus on empowerment in using these tools is paramount, because it ensures that AI acts as a catalyst for enriching educational processes rather than being a substitute for human interaction and effort. But there's this nuance of challenge in running out this balance. It has lots of different aspects. One is teacher enablement. AI can be a really powerful tool for teachers, helping them with their planning and identifying learning gaps and all of those things. But this requires teachers to be equipped with the necessary skills and understanding in order to effectively integrate AI into their teaching methods. So PD and things like that need to focus on AI literacy, but also a little bit of AI ethics, like we're doing now. Then it comes up with the students, right? AI has the potential to tailor educational experiences, and this personalized approach can really foster student engagement and understanding. But it's really crucial that these tools are designed and used in a way that encourages active learning and critical thinking rather than passive consumption of information. Students should be encouraged to, question, to interact with, to challenge different AI content so that we can avoid learned helplessness, because that's one of the risks of integrating AI into education, is the potential development of learned helplessness among students, where students become overly reliant on AI for answers and for guidance. In order to mitigate this, AI should be used to guide and suggest rather than dictate. So it's important that there's structure in those tools, that they can promote students to think independently and to solve problems, not just to provide quick answers or solutions. And that's true for adults too. Surveillance and discipline, also a conversational topic. I want to think what else we have. Public trust and engagement as well. This is true most noticeably when I introduced this to staff. We had lots of different opinions about if they trusted new technology in general. And establishing public trust in the use of AI, especially in educational settings, goes beyond just transparency. It necessitates this active and inclusive engagement to the process with the entire educational community, including educators and students, but also parents and policymakers. So this engagement is really crucial for developing a shared understanding and vision for the role in education that AI has. So community involvement, very important. Campaigns to explain how and why, transparency and decision making is really important, but also policy and governance. So building public trust in AI in education is about creating this collaborative and inclusive process that also make sure it aligns their decisions with the views and values of the community that those tools are being used in. And that's can be a very delicate thought process. Then we probably have the one that everybody has thought of, right? Academic integrity with student work. The use of AI by students to create graded content raises lots of different ethical considerations. And we're going to talk about that in the future. But right now, educators and institutions need to carefully contemplate what they're going to do in response to this issue, because this issue touches on this core value of, integrity and fairness and the purpose of education, right? Academic integrity is one of those things. A primary concern is the potential compromise of academic integrity. If students use AI to complete assignments or essays or projects, it raises that question about authorship and originality, right? The fundamental purpose of assignments is to assess a student's understanding of skills and knowledge. So when AI is used to produce these assignments, it becomes a challenge to determine how much of the work reflects the student's own understanding and effort. Then we have fairness and equity, right? If the availability of these tools to students is not uniform, there could be a disparity in the advantages of using this as a tool. So if some students have more access to AI tools, just like technology, this could potentially produce this equity issue among who has the opportunity to use these as tools. And then, learning and development. The use of AI by students for creating graded content can impact the learning process. This, educational journey is about the process of learning, which includes thinking and problem solving and creativity, but also the end result. So if we rely too much on AI for assignments, could that impede the development of those essential skills? You could also get addicted to technology, right? There's this risk of students becoming overly dependent on AI for academic tasks. And that feeds into the idea we talked about previously about learned helplessness, right? We just know that there's this need to, while we introduce these tools, incorporate digital ethics into some of the curriculum work that we do so that students know and understand the ethical uses of technology, including understanding these different implications and responsibilities. So, the use of AI by students in creating graded content is really complex, and it's this ethical issue that we're still trying to work out the boundaries to, but it requires lots of careful consideration and proactive management and also coaching. But, this is one of those issues that institutions such as school districts need to develop clear policies on and guidelines, and educate students and staff about those guidelines and how it's going to work in their area. So I did a ton of talking. I just want you to understand that with any new technology, there are ethical considerations, but with this new technology, there are more. And there are more because so much of this is so automated and new that is different than a lot of the technologies we have used in the past. In addition to that, it touches so many aspects of our everyday life that there will not be a portion of our everyday life that doesn't involve some aspect of artificial intelligence in the near future. So not only is the diversity of the ethical questions regarding this topic really wide, the use of this technology is also very wide. So I have some questions for you to try and answer regarding this. And I know I talked a lot about the issues, but I want you to think of what you have in your opinion on this topic as we explore these different ethical conundrums. So your questions this week are 4. The first one is, Who do you think is responsible for overseeing the use of AI in educational contexts? So when you think about using the resources you've tried out or using it with students, who is responsible for that use and monitoring that? Is it the district? Is it you as a teacher? Is it the students? Who is it? Question number 2, which of these areas that we talked about, transparency, privacy, trust, public engagement, which one of these areas are you most concerned about and why? Question number 3, what are the potential risks of over-reliance on AI for educational assessments and decision-making? I can see in the very near future a world where our assessments are individualized and they're adaptive across the board. Really powerful tool to measure student understanding, but is there risk in over-reliance on that for decision-making? And the final question this week is, in what ways might the use of an AI in education change the teacher-student dynamic? And how can we mitigate any of these negative impacts that might pop up because of it? I very much look forward to hearing and reading what your different thoughts on this topic of AI and ethics is.